our next speaker is going to be talking about training for change. He is a senior strategist with National People's Action, and he has been a community organizer for 15 years on the neighborhood, city, state, and national levels in both the United States and the UK. He has organized successful campaigns on neighborhood infrastructure, immigrants' rights, workers' rights, and Wall Street reform. He is currently serving as Bank Accountability Campaign Director at National People's Action, and I'm informed that he has built a bridge over a moat surrounding a JP Morgan Chase shareholder meeting and has stormed across dressed as Robin Hood. Please welcome Jordan Estevao.
Clearly someone found my bio somewhere on the internet from like 5 years ago and, and ran with it, which is great. So thanks very much for having me. My name is Jordan Estevao. I am a senior strategist at People's Action, formerly known as National People's Action. We're a result of a merger between NPA and Alliance for a Just Society and US Action. We are a network of people power community organizations around the country. There are some 50 member organizations in 30 states. Collectively, we have organizers in 100 cities, about 600 professional community organizers working in those cities with people on issues from housing, justice, to climate and environmental issues, to mass incarceration and policing, and about 1 million members across the country. People's Action, we're a racial and economic justice issue organization, and our raison d'etre is that we feel that there are 3 simultaneous big crises happening in this country and on this planet. One, that the planet itself is in crisis. That every summer is the hottest summer ever, and that can't continue. That the economy that we are living in is based on extraction. It's based on runaway inequality, and that's getting worse and worse every year, and that can't continue. And that our democracy is broken, that the number of people who have real influence in our politics is shrinking all the time. One of our assumptions is that we believe that, that the people who are affected most by these issues are the experts on these issues, are the people whose voices are too frequently missing from the rooms where decisions are made that affect all of our lives. I started with National People's Action running our financial industry accountability campaign work in 2008. Sometime previous, I had been working with an organization in Chicago called the Northwest Neighborhood Federation. 2 members of that organization, which is a local community organization working on local neighborhood quality of life issues. Jose Torres and Sonia Cruz were cousins, and they knew each other. They had a fine relationship. And we're working on things like getting the parks cleaned up, getting a neighborhood training, a job training center built in the neighborhood, things like that. And the organizers who were working with them, built deep relationships with these folks, and learned at around the same time that both of them were in foreclosure, that their stake in the community was under threat, and they stood to lose their homes. And what's interesting about that is they didn't know that about each other, right? They were so just buried in debt and in shame about the fact that they were so deep in debt, that they had screwed up, they had made a mistake, they had bought outside their means. further conversations with the organizers and, more and more with each other, we learned that they had both taken predatory loans, right? These exploding option arms that we know now were concentrated in communities of color, in low income and working class communities that they targeted, Latinos, blacks, and elderly folks with poisonous loan products. And they did this systematically, right? Like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank have all paid like big settlements because years down the line, because the evidence was there. More and more people in our network started telling us stories like this. And it was, it wasn't just mortgages, it was things like payday loans, car title loans, anything to do with debt in the financial industry, where, they were really, and this still continues, we're targeting our communities with these poisonous loan products. And this is, you can call it reverse redlining. National People's Action was born in the fight against redlining, right, in the 1970s. So this was, not new to us. For those of you that don't know, redlining is a practice that has a long history, but in the 70s, before they had computer maps, they had like actual maps where they would actually literally draw a red line around the black community and not make loans there, right? So it stopped black folks for generations from building wealth in their communities. That campaign spread throughout the organization, and prior to the big financial crash in late 2007, we had already protested at Ben Bernanke's house, and got a meeting with him, right? He told us in that, we told him, look, thousands of people in our neighborhoods are losing their homes. Every other house is abandoned in some of our communities. There's a crisis underfoot. He said, there's no crisis, the market will self-correct, right? And then later that year, literally, Lehman Brothers went under, AIG got a bailout, the rest is history. This is to say, back to my earlier point, the people who are affected by the issues are the experts on these issues. And they saw this coming. And if we invest in their ability to work together, to organize, to come together and build power, and actually listen to them, then we can make a lot of good things happen and prevent a lot of bad things from happening. These conversations between people, they don't happen by themselves, right? It takes organizing, especially as the trend is that the social fabric of our communities is disintegrating, right? The trends are toward more isolation, more individual action versus collective action, and so we need to fight that actively. After the crash in 2008, a lot of us were kind of frozen, and tell me if you remember it this way, but for like a good year, there was no protest against, or nothing visible, nothing major against the banks in the financial industry, right? There are a lot of stories about, and there's a narrative brewing about how the financial crash was the fault of brown people trying to buy too much house. That narrative started to really take hold, and there's, and we said, you know what? We need to take people. We cannot let our own people, let alone the rest of the world, believe that, right? We need to move people from private shame, private frustration, to public anger. And so, in 2009, we learned that the American Bankers Association was going to have a convention in Chicago. Chicago, of all places, right? Super hard-hit city by the financial crash. And we said, we can't let them get away with that. So we called thousands of people across the region and across the country, and 1,000 of them answered the call, and came in from Iowa, from New York, from Nevada, from Wisconsin, Michigan, from all over, and we decided we're going to have our own convention across the river from theirs. We're gonna have this conversation with our people about who actually is to blame for the financial crash, and who's actually to blame for all these foreclosures and communities being decimated. And we're going to invite some of our friends. Like Elizabeth Warren, pre-Senator Elizabeth Warren came and spoke with us about this crazy idea she had about a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that would regulate banks on behalf of consumers. And we took those lessons and we marched. We hit, we did actions on Bank of America in downtown Chicago. We did actions on, all the bank offices and their biggest branches downtown. And so the first day we had 1,000 people. Second day we had 2,000 people. The third day we had 5,000 people at the footstep of the American Bankers Association conference. And we also had, a few hundred people hidden in hotel rooms at their conference who, during the conference were actually able to get inside the hotel and disrupt their conference and get in their faces and tell them what was really happening in our communities. Powerful action. But what's key about that is nothing like this had happened since the crash, right? And so all the media really, for years after the fact, we saw our people, folks like Jose and Sonia, on B-roll that was used on news clips to show that people were angry at the banks. And it was really, this very simple thing that was missing from the conversation was actual evidence that people are up in arms. And that's where we saw the change of narrative, the beginning of the change in the narrative from, this is people's fault to this is Wall Street's doing. I wish there were a timer here so I knew how much time I had left, but 5 minutes? Cool. So the JP Morgan Chase action was also a great one. It turns out, lots of our folks had mortgages with JP Morgan Chase, got predatory mortgages from JP Morgan Chase. And we decided to let them know that at their shareholder meeting, which when we went to see the location where that's going to be held, it turns out they're going to have it not in New York, where they usually had it, but they're going to have it at their corporate headquarters in Columbus, Ohio, which apparently we learned is the largest office building in the world after the Pentagon, second largest in the world. And it's this giant, building surrounded by a giant parking lot, surrounded by, I kid you not, a moat, or like a drainage ditch, but it's there to keep traffic in. And so we said, moat, that's perfect. And as the person who introduced me stated, we built a drawbridge, and we dressed like Robin Hood, and we said, what, we're gonna take back what's ours. Again, generated lots of news, visual evidence about the fact that that people are angry at the banks. There's another note that I want to make about this, which is, there's a rich and important interplay between what you call maybe organic social movements and kind of professionalized or institutionalized community organizing. And we see that play out again and again, where the big, splashy, and very resonant movement isn't enough by itself, right? Doesn't last by itself, and that professionalized community organizing also isn't enough by itself. Like, you need both. So you see this with the previous speaker named the Occupy Wall Street movement, and how there are others now who are really running with those ideas and have been able to turn those, to translate the ideas of 99% versus 1% into things like real traction on the fight for 15, right? Fight for $15 minimum wages in multiple states. We see it in the huge amount of kind of political space that was opened by the People's Climate March in New York City. 400,000 people taking the streets in New York to fight against climate change. You know, that's created tons of momentum for organizers on the ground working on those issues. And, you know, not at all least Black Lives Matter. I'll give a very brief anecdote about that. So this is back in Illinois. Anita Alvarez, for years, was the state's attorney there. She's the state's attorney who famously suppressed the video of the murder of Laquan McDonald, and was responsible for policies that incarcerated really tens, hundreds of thousands of black folks in Illinois. And she had an opponent, Kim Foxx, who grew up in Cabrini Green in the projects in Chicago, believed in restorative justice, you know, wants to work to heal communities rather than punish them. And you know, the BYP 100, the Black Youth Project, got on the streets, did amazing direct actions, got a lot of media attention because it's young black people fighting for their own rights. And at the same time, our members in Illinois, the People's Lobby, Fair Economy Illinois, Illinois People's Action, Southsiders Organized for Unity and Liberation, you know, established community groups. They were out there on the doors, knocking on doors for Anita Alvarez. They produced more volunteer and hours for her campaign than any other organization. And we won that election, and Kim Foxx is now the state's attorney in Illinois. Both the movement and the organizing were critical and insufficient for that moment, and we think there are really important lessons to learn from that when we can take movements and organizing and bring it together. So thanks very much.